You're actively being destroyed from the inside out, and you don't even realize it's happening. Every single day, you wake up empty, you scroll your phone, you feel like a complete nobody. A silent trap is literally swallowing your life whole. Modern life wants you weak, broke, and paralyzed by your own pain. Why? Because a useless man is incredibly easy to control. Your endless suffering isn't an accident. Your aimless wandering is a slow, active psychological execution.
A dangerous, silent operation is targeting millions at this exact second. And you probably think this feeling of empty, aimless wandering is just bad luck. It's not. You wake up invisible, numb, useless. And while your life bleeds away into a glowing screen, a predatory system thrives off your total collapse. That absolute silence in your chest, that rotting feeling that you just don't matter, they aren't random. They are the exact symptoms of an invisible trap.
People constantly misread this. They tell themselves, oh, a man in this condition just needs time to rest. Listen to me. That is a fatal delusion. The lack of urgency you're feeling right now is the deadliest trick ever played on your mind. Because this paralysis, it isn't a peaceful pause. It's a rapid descent into complete psychological destruction. These feelings are terrifying alarm signals. They're screaming at you, warning you that your spirit is actively being extinguished.
Let's break down Section 1, the blueprint of active decay.
When a man loses his sense of purpose, he doesn't just stagnate. He enters an ancient, deadly cycle known as active decay. Historically, when a population loses its core mission, power structures do not step in to help. They exploit. They feed the masses cheap distractions and just sit back as they destroy themselves from within. When you sit still in a state of absolute uselessness, you aren't recovering. You are rotting. You're surrendering all your control and becoming a hollow shell.
The legendary philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche actually decoded this terrifying mechanism decades ago. He observed how human beings naturally collapse into pure nihilism when they lack a brutal struggle. Nietzsche realized that if a man doesn't intentionally choose a hard, painful mountain to climb, his own mind will step in and manufacture an internal torture chamber. Remain in this comfortable numbness, and your psychological pain will curdle into permanent resentment and absolute ruin. But if you think that's the worst part, you are severely underestimating this trap.
Which brings us to Section 2, the system's predatory strategy.
Modern life literally thrives on a man with no mission. Look at the setup. You're isolated, you're distracted, you're spoon-fed cheap dopamine through screens. You are kept just comfortable enough so that you never actually fight back. The current world order explicitly benefits from you staying weak and aimless. Because think about it, a weak, aimless young man consumes mindless media and poses absolutely zero threat to authority. The system relies on you believing that suffering has to be avoided, which keeps you completely harmless.
Right now, you are actively resisting your own reality. You're sitting there wishing your life was easier, wishing you were born richer or had better luck. This silent resistance is draining every single ounce of power you have left. Friedrich Nietzsche warned us that fighting your current reality is literal mental suicide. Every single time you complain, you hand over your leverage to the exact system that profits from your weakness. You're framing your cowardice as safety, but all you're doing is guaranteeing your own total extinction.
Let's move to Section 3, Viktor Frankl's lethal purpose. Viktor Frankl studied human survival under the most extreme hellish conditions imaginable. In his work, Man's Search for Meaning. He documented how men who lost their internal reason to fight died long before their physical bodies actually gave up. But the men who attached deep, profound meaning to their agony, they could survive absolute hell. Viktor Frankl proved something incredibly crucial. If you don't find a lethal purpose for your pain right now, enduring that empty, useless pain is going to literally rot your mind alive.
To put this into perspective, Viktor Frankl once confronted a deeply depressed doctor who was completely paralyzed by the loss of his wife. Frankl didn't offer cheap comfort. Instead, he reinterpreted the doctor's immense agony, framing it as a sacrificial shield that actually saved his wife from having to endure that exact same pain. The raw agony didn't change at all, but its purpose transformed everything. Right now, you're enduring empty, useless pain simply because you refuse to attach a lethal, unrelenting purpose to your struggle.
This leads right into Section 4, the chain of psychological paralysis.
This paralysis happens in very specific phases. The first shift is the complete erosion of your self-respect. You get to a point where you can no longer look in the mirror without feeling intense shame. You just watch helplessly as time speeds up, stripping away your youth while you accomplish absolutely nothing. The second shift is even more dangerous. You build a permanent fake self-image just to protect your fragile ego. You make excuses while your actual capability shrinks down to zero. And the final shift? Total psychological paralysis. Slow, comfortable self-destruction becomes preferable to the terrifying pain of actually attempting to build something real.
Now let's look at Section 5, Joseph Campbell's Dark Cave. Joseph Campbell explicitly identified this exact psychological wall. He said, "The very cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you desperately seek." You need to consider this a tactical ultimatum in this explainer. If you refuse to step into that dark cave of brutal effort, your true potential remains forever out of reach. It stays locked away while you slowly wither outside in the cold. You are infinitely more vulnerable when you buy into the complete delusion that life should be painless.
Which brings us to our final strategy in Section 6, Friedrich Nietzsche's Amor Fati. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this exact tragedy play out in his own physical existence. The man endured relentless, crippling sickness and a devastating mental collapse at age 44. Yet Nietzsche refused to beg for a softer life. He deeply understood that suffering is the exact raw fuel required to forge true human greatness. If you continue to demand a life completely free of pain, you aren't seeking peace, you are actively demanding your own permanent weakness.
We are fast approaching a critical fork in your life. Your power will either be claimed or it will be permanently destroyed. Consider Path 1. You continue operating exactly as you are today. You avoid discomfort, you hide from the work. The result? You become a bitter, forgotten spectator watching other men build the world. Now, consider Path 2. Execute the terrifying doctrine of Amor Fati, the love of fate. You embrace every single obstacle, failure, and betrayal as direct fuel for your ascension. You literally force your weak self-image to die a violent death so a ruthless, unstoppable version can take its place.
You need to tone your expectations down to absolute zero right now. The universe does not care about your comfort. No one is coming to save you. The world keeps spinning, completely indifferent to whether you survive or perish. If you do not consciously choose your own painful battles, life is going to ruthlessly select far worse, meaningless suffering to inflict upon you anyway. How much more of your life are you willing to sacrifice before you finally realize this?
You are standing right on the fine edge between permanent obscurity and total self-mastery. Look back. History is littered with the forgotten remains of men who waited for the right moment, or waited for life to magically get easier. Friedrich Nietzsche gave us the ultimate warning. You must love your fate, not just endure it. Because your suffering is literally the only raw material you will ever be given to forge a legacy. So as we wrap up this explainer, I leave you staring at your own reflection with one final thought. Which path are you already walking?